just let your soul glow.
Yeah.
Just let it shine through. You see, I got on my
So you got your family shirt.
My reunion shirt.
Yep.
A family reunion.
Okay,
and
that's got to go into the bloopers reel.
right. And it's because this seemed like a family reunion of sorts. Everybody is there, people who you know, people who you grown up with, people who you're just now meeting, you know.
Yeah.
We had a ball, but first and foremost, I believe that you got an invitation, you and the missus. Tell us about that.
Correct. If you didn't know, Coming to America sequel's coming out. I don't know, for some reason I got a postcard from Amazon in the mail about it. So like, and I mean, I had Prime, so you know, I did see it in whenever I turn on the television.
Right.
But yes, got a nice little promo. So I don't know what that was about, but they did it. So it's like, all right, let's see it.
Just give me a quick overview of what you felt about it, and then we'll kind of dive in.
So I could tell right away that the difference just in the rating of the two movies, that this one was PG-13 while the previous one was R. You could tell, you know, the language, how far they went into like the subject of stuff. You know, because
definitely reeled back.
Yeah, they definitely reeled back. The family reunion aspect is very real. Because I felt like every 5 minutes it's like, hey, remember this? Right. Hey, remember this? Remember this? It's like, okay, I get it. Thank you. Yes.
Then they kept doing it.
they did it like throughout, and that was a conscious choice. But that is something that I know it was a lot of that. Okay. Didn't bug me that much, but I did notice it. But you know, I did like seeing, you know, those things. So I did like see it. But there was a lot of shout outs, like many shout outs to have. Like, okay, fine. But I did like seeing a few people briefly, especially like Wanda Crawley, which I didn't see that coming that she was gonna be. I was like, wait a minute, I know that face, I know that voice. So I'm like, okay, she got a film credit. Go ahead. Go ahead.
She took it home. That was what's the name of the song? To be loved, to be loved. Oh, what a feeling to be loved. She killed it.
Yeah, it was good. It was I appreciated that. So, you know, Gladys Knight, I'm like, all right, they got some people in here. Morgan Freeman, like, all right, they did it. They brought everybody in. So all right, I'm glad that they were able to bring back so much of the original cast. It seemed like the whole original cast, really.
Save for maybe one or two. We were missing the Soul Glow guy. Okay. And
they brought in John Legend, so
yeah, right. He kind of made up for it, right?
they brought him in there too, like, all right.
Right. Then Akeem's mother, the actress, has passed away in real life. So but and then Samuel Jackson didn't reprise his robber role, but that was pretty much it, you know.
They stuffed this thing full of people, which okay, fine. I did see I guess there was a message towards the end about, I guess, being true to yourself when the prince stopped trying to be the prince of
Zamunda.
Thank you. I was about to say Wakanda.
Yeah. Right.
When he stopped trying to be, when his barber would stop trying to be the Prince of Zamunda and instead be the Prince of Queens, like, okay, I guess that's the message you're going with. All right. And then the bravery thing with the lions and the ingenuity, that was nice. Yeah. That was nice. It was nice to see him work out his differences with his sister, since thought she was going to ascend to the throne.
Right.
It was nice that they were able to work their differences out, which is okay. That was nice. So all in all, I enjoyed it. It kept me laughing.
Certainly
I did appreciate seeing all those references to the first movie. It was fun to see those things. I appreciated the characters that they brought back. It was a fun ride.
This was almost like a African American celebration. You had the dancing, you had the rituals, the costumes. By the way, Ruth E. Carter did it again, and she got the Oscar for Black Panther. and they had them threads popping. um, but we needed this. The last three Black films that came down the pipe were all serious. Nonfiction and straight to your soul and straight to your, kind of your jugular vein. Just choking you up, and some of them put you in tears, some of them put you in different perspectives. This was something where you could kind of let your hair down and kind of just enjoy things for a moment. We needed this levity, and I heard of so many watch parties that were going on, and this was the first time that that's happened since Black Panther. So that's definitely something that we were looking for and that we really needed. Another one of the key, I guess, topics that were kind of subliminal, I felt, was embracing your age or embracing your maturity. And this is kind of in two parts because Eddie Murphy, at the stage that he is in his career right now, has given away to more family friendly projects and going away with the rated R and bringing in the PG-13 and the G and even the PG. And I think it has a lot to do with growing up. I think that his character in the film had to grow up and had to become mature. The way that he spoke, the way that he conducted himself, it's almost like a way that you can kind of draw a comparison to Beverly Hills Cop, with how in the first one and maybe even parts of the second one, he was almost like Bugs Bunny, even to the point that he put like a banana in a tailpipe of somebody's car just to show he was just like, the best word to describe it is like wacky. And that was just how he was with Akeem. Although he was kind of, he was dialed back in the first one, and Arsenio was kind of the one that he bounced off of and everything. I wouldn't really call Akeem the straight man, even though he kind of had that about him. So I understood in this one that he wasn't giving all of the lines and all of the punchlines, and everything that he said or did was sensational. Even in the first one, he kind of rolled out the red carpet for a lot of comedians and a lot of entertainers and a lot of actors and actresses. And I felt that he did that in this one too. And so it was a great look to see a lot of the comedians and to see a lot of the musicians and the dancing and things like that just leap right off the screen and right into your living room. And like I always do, I watched this twice, the first time with my wife and the second time by myself. And while I felt that some of the jokes didn't land upon rewatch, I think the most important thing was laughter that we need right now with everything that's going on, and which we'll need, for time to come. So we sat back, we laughed loud, we laughed with our bellies. I believe that that's what they wanted us to do. So about that lesson, like you were saying, about, I guess, being yourself and finding out who you are. Do you feel that that lesson was like they kind of stuck the landing with it as far as his son Lavelle was concerned?
I think it came about pretty late in the movie. Um, it would have had more resonance to me, I guess, if we had more time with the son, maybe not knowing who he was, although he said it. But
Right.
I did kind of think, like, where is this now coming from? Why is it important for him to, I don't know, say that he's Prince of Queens now instead of Zamunda, even though he is Prince of Zamunda, and he's trying to walk into that inheritance. I didn't know where that was coming from. I didn't know why it was necessary. So I got more out of it, what I had mentioned, him working with his sister, who could have been a potential rival for the throne. And instead them, I guess, working together for the common good of Zamunda, since, for their own safety, they had to produce an heir. And within, I guess, the regime there, it had to be a male heir. So the sister kind of seemed to be laying down what she could have tried to hold on to as her own,
Right.
To help get the one on the throne who by their laws deserves it. And then it was good to see that, he still had a place for her in the kingdom afterwards, that I guess he decided to just, not reign there. Instead, kind of hand off a lot of the responsibility onto her, since she had trained for, being the head of state, and he had. So that's kind of more what I took from it than, be yourself, I guess.
And there was also a lesson to be learned, I felt, concerning fatherhood. And it was great when he sat down with Cleo McDowell and McDowell's, and kind of picked his brain as far as what it takes to actually be a father, and when it's time to shed the ways of old and embrace the new creations that are to come. I also appreciated the women empowerment, as we were saying. All three of his daughters were, even the youngest was fierce and ready to whip that thing if it had to. When they grabbed the sticks and got to doing their thing and all, and they were also very regal. They were very lovely, and they were strong characters. And we even had Eddie Murphy's daughter in, I think, her debut role. And not just them, but also you've got Leslie Jones, you've got Eddie Murphy's wife, you've got all of those roles beefed up from the first one. And one more quick thing, I also like the dichotomy of rich versus poor. Just like you have in your families, just like you have in your circles, everyone doesn't come from the same background. You have some people who can be loud and abrasive and give you what's on their mind from the second that they see you. And then you got the ones who are kind of laid back, the ones who she used the word uppity in the movie, so maybe we can use the word uppity, but sometimes you got the sedity kind of holier than thou type of personality. And when those two not only are in the same room, but are also in the same bloodline or sharing the same family tree, it's gonna be fireworks at first, because one side thinks the other side is lacking on this. Another side thinks this side should be more focusing on X, Y, and Z. And in truth, everybody's right. And I appreciate the fact that they were all not only accepted, but their strengths were put right in the forefront of the film. And so, although Leslie Jones was loud and didn't give a care about anybody's opinion but hers, and although Simi was, as always, quiet but also kind of spoiled, he was able to agree with the uncle towards the end of the line with with Tracy and everything. So I really like the way that they took the time to flesh out both sides of that equation, because as I said before, you see that in day-to-day life, and sometimes people are just assumed to get along just because they're in the same space, but that doesn't have to always be the case.
Well, speaking of getting along, I really like how the beefed up role, as you mentioned, especially for Eddie Murphy's wife.
Oh yes,
for Sherry Headley. I
yes.
really appreciated that she just wasn't there. And in this society where women aren't allowed to do much,
right,
I'm glad that she did a lot, and she was able to influence that throne like a wife can, yes. And only wife can, really. And it was nice to see her finally get along with Leslie Jones. Yes. Because they brought up that I didn't realize that this is a girl from my same hometown, and right. So there was a really nice connection that they eventually
almost.
That was a nice connection that they eventually had. So that was nice to give the women something to do other than just sit on the side and just look pretty. So that was nice. I really that was good. I liked how they fleshed out some of these characters, because as we have said, there were a lot of characters, but yes. I think they gave more screen time, more weight to some really important ones, and that was very good.
Another part was the makeup effects. Mm-hmm. We went back to the barber shop in Queens, Mighty Sharp. And how about the what was it, like a witch doctor that Arsenio played?
Yeah.
And he's like,
We were trying to figure out who is that?
Cuz was wow. I mean,
I'm like,
from
who
his
is
hair to
that?
his eyes.
We were like, is that Eddie Murphy? No, it can't be Eddie Murphy. Is it?
Yep,
Is
it
it?
was
Is it
Arsenio.
Arsenio? I don't know.
Right.
So that was a makeup job for sure.
Yeah, he was like he was almost like Rafiki.
Rafiki, yes, that's exactly what we said.
Right. And I wonder if they if they put that like that, on purpose, or if it just so happened to be that way, There's an E word, a word starting with the letter E, and we try to do it clean on this. We saw that we might give you a damn and an occasional hell, but we don't really do any cussing all. And there is an E word that kind of I see haunting this film. And while I can kind of understand it, I also have a bit of a take on it, and I want to know your take. That word is expectations. Sometimes because a film is so good, you think that going into it, if there's ever going to be a sequel or anything to copy off of it, now the bar has been raised so high that if it goes anywhere under it, it's just trash. And people are kind of folding their arms, and people are kind of, rolling their eyes and everything else. Sometimes those expectations can be set so high that you can't meet them. And this was a case where I knew going into it, it was best to not try to compare the two films, because not only do they share the difference of one being done in like 88 and the other one being done in 2020, or no, I think it was finished maybe a year or two before, but being released in 2021, there are decades that have gone by. Those characters are not going to be the same. It's hard to get into a filmmaker's mindset on what they're trying to convey. But sometimes you paint yourself into a corner when you assume that these beats in a film are going to be met just because they were the first time. And so when I watched this, I had to remember that this is a clean slate. Even as you said before, this is a PG-13 and not an R. There are some things that aren't going to be tackled. There are some things that can't be. And it's important to not compare films to the point that if a sequel is made, it means that all of the success and the fame and the legend of the original is somehow having the chance of being crumbled at the foundation. No, it's a chance for the new thing to shed new light, to gain new fans and a new following, and to draw their attention to where it all came from. How do you feel, real quick, about expectations being made not only for this film, but for sequels and for films where there is so much like firepower in the actors and in the names that when it comes together, fans sometimes are basically like, if this ain't good, I don't care about what else. I ain't spending no more money with you. Because I heard that, I heard that today. I heard that when it first came out and before it came out.
So I feel a similar way to this as I feel about Black Panther in terms of, do I want a sequel? And here's why. Because Black Panther introduced us to the nation of Wakanda. And now I want to know all about, well, I want to go to visit Wakanda. But barring that,
right.
in the real world, I want to learn more about it. So give me all the Black Panther sequels. I feel the same way about this. And especially because we're coming to America, we finally got to learn actually something about Zamunda. Because the first movie was really about,
about Queens.
About Queens. But this one was more about Zamunda. Not even just the place, but the kind of culture it is. Women and men and their place in that society. And that's the kind of thing that I feel can be explored successfully. I think it was explored successfully in this sequel. And I wouldn't mind, seeing more about Zamunda. Now that we know a little bit more what it's about, we know a little more about its citizens, and a little bit about its politics. So I don't mind that there was a sequel at all. I mean, it is a comedy film. So I feel that this was an appropriate sequel, that it didn't like swerve all over the place.
Right.
To become something that would seem out of place. So expectations didn't really bother me. I do think the first film did set a pretty high bar, but I didn't mind that this one was a sequel, and I wouldn't mind seeing something else about the nation of Zamunda.
I believe that they know, just like we do, we're going to line up. If it's in the theaters, we're going to do that. If it's, at home in your living room, we're going to check that out too, because as weird as it sounds, and even being, fictional, it's still like part of our heritage in some way. And so it's like these characters are almost our brothers and sisters and cousins and nephews and nieces and such. We grew up with them. It's funny because I can understand maybe having the chance of being let down if all of the beats or all the notes aren't met or hit right on. But the bones of this were there in the original. It's the same colors, it's the same key pieces. It's just we're going to, just as sequels should do, extend ourselves somewhat. So in doing so, as we said before, they added some new characters. First of all, I think we have General Easy as Wesley Snipes, who is like got bits of the scene like stuck in his teeth from chewing it. But but he was as good in this one as he was out in Dolomite, which was the other most recent Eddie Murphy vehicle to release. That one was on Netflix. So for me, it was Wesley Snipes. It was I liked what Jermaine Fowler did, because there was a lot of weight that was put on this young man's shoulders, and he was even saying in an interview about how he felt when he got the phone call from Eddie, and it's like it put him in tears, because this is someone who you followed and who was like the grandfather of comedy, almost like Eddie, I'm sure, felt that Richard Pryor was, almost like, on down the line. And so those two, and also just for starters, Leslie Jones and what she gave. How did you feel, about any of the characters that you'd like to kind of single out a little bit?
I felt Leslie Jones, her part was great. She's got those comedy chops. I mean, she's got them, and I think she did what she does best, is play that Leslie Jones character. But I think she did a great job. She did a great job doing it. I really didn't have any complaints like at all with her. With Jermaine Fowler, I kind of felt in the beginning when he first came on the scene, I felt like this is something that could have been done by Will Smith maybe like 15, 20 years ago. But he was fine in what he did. He was fine at what he did. So that has no problem. You could tell Wesley Snipes was having fun. So
yes.
I'm glad he was having fun.
In a room like this.
bro was hamming it up. He was like 100% the whole way through, which like, all right, here's Wesley Snipes.
Yes, and you need that
with the comedy, like, all right, okay, let me sit back. Let me just sit back and experience this, because all right, it's your show now, sir. So all right.
Oh man, every time he was on the screen. Another one of my favorites is always, for some reason, Reverend Brown. Played by our Reverend Brown is like womanizing and like doing everything that he ain't supposed to do on the pulpit. And I
think we've all met a Reverend Brown. so that's how it works. We've been in that church. Even if it's not our church. We've been to that church.
And that's what makes it so real, Oh my gosh, man. And we even had a little bit of sexual chocolate with Mr. Randy Watson himself. And of course, as we said before, the barbershop guy. I mean, people have wanted a movie with them by themselves. And I'm sure it would have to be maybe like a 87-minute movie or something like that, just so that it wouldn't wear too far.
Yeah.
But I wonder why they didn't already do something like that, you know.
Yeah, it
To
is
go into the
surprising that
cons
they
real
that they
quick.
haven't had their own series already, or like I said, a limited series, a really short something. Because yeah, since they're kind of on the side, it almost seems
Yes.
right for them to be
Yeah.
on the side of their own thing
Yeah, it's like
rather than
episodic,
taking up
you know?
rather than taking up space and time in this one. Because yeah.
So to go into a couple of the cons, because of course there were some. For starters, I felt like the relationship between Jermaine Fowler's character and Marimbe was a bit rushed. And I'm wondering, because of the runtime and because of so many working components, there just wasn't enough time to focus on them and how it was blossoming. And of course, you know, in some ways, you're kind of comparing it to Eddie Murphy and how he met his soon-to-be wife, and how he kind of had to woo her and be patient and wait for her to break up with the with the Prince of Soul Glow and all. But with this, from the first time that she, you know, fixed his hair, and from the first time that they realized that they were going to be seeing one another repeatedly because of being so close in the palace, it was already taken off. And before you know it, he's like, I love you, and I don't want her, I want you. And I thought that it was a bit ham-fisted, but it was one thing that if they had more time, I'm sure they may have been able to add maybe at least one or two more scenes to make that love seem more believable.
Well, I think with that relationship, I agree that that relationship could have been more fleshed out somewhere. But see, you also had to fit in his relationship with the woman who he was supposed to marry, and how that
That's
connected
true.
with the woman that Eddie Murphy was supposed to marry, because they both had this thing of, I'll do whatever you
Yes.
want. I don't have any wants of my own. And so they also had to
Yeah.
include the fact that the first one was still barking like a dog after all these years. And so then and so they also referenced it with the prince's wife to be. And I felt that kind of fell flat. I don't know what I was expecting when
Yeah.
he told her stand right there, and so she stood right there. I don't know what I was expecting there.
Right.
But if that's all you're
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
do, if you're going to hit the same beat of, oh no, she also isn't operating like she has a mind of her own, so let's just have her stand still.
Yeah.
That kind of fell flat to me. I was wondering, could you not have made this something funny without
Yeah.
repeating what you did for Eddie Murphy's
Exactly.
wife, who was in the first movie and she's in this second one too? So I do agree. You know,
Right.
there were a bunch of, well, like I said earlier, there was a lot of remember this, remember this, remember this. That too. There were plot beats that the filmmakers decided to carry over from the old film and address them and update them. So you stuffing all that into the movie. And so how much time do you have to develop this relationship, which is with one of the main
Right.
characters, you know, Eddie Murphy's son? I mean, what
Yeah.
time do you have to flesh out his relationship with his barber when you gotta, like I was saying, fit in his new wife who he don't like, who also doesn't have a mind of his own? And remember, Eddie Murphy's wife didn't have a mind of her own either. Remember that? You know, you got to do all that. There's
Yeah.
no time
Yeah.
left to
Yeah.
fully explore this now romance. And she fell in love over a haircut, which, I mean, I'm sure it's happened, but it's like we moving
It was a hell
on.
of a haircut, you know.
And then we're
He had
also
the whole
navigating, yeah, get that Killmonger haircut.
Michael B. Jordan thing
Yeah,
going,
that
right?
Killmonger thing. You know, I'm like, all right, remember that from
Right.
Black Panther? Okay, got you.
Right.
But
Yeah.
then you also have to fit in the prince's relationship with his sisters, which that also kind of fell by the wayside. I think especially like the middle sister.
Yes.
No, the youngest sister, because we know the middle
Right.
sister, or no, you know what? No, both of the younger sisters, because I know they had that one scene where they were teaching him about his ancestors.
You're right. Exactly.
And that was it. He spent the most time of the sisters. There was most time of him with his oldest sister, and that makes sense because they were kind of competing for the throne. But then it's
Yes.
like, yeah, why do we have these two other people that there's no time to even get through. Not that I'm asking for a miniseries from Zamunda, despite what I just said, but like there's all these characters, there's all these beats that are not only in the first film, but also in the second film that we have to copy and update, and all these relationships that have to be presented. And so there was no time for everything to be full when you have so much that you have to fit in here and still keep the movie under 2 hours. So I think that suffered a little bit. Another thing that I noticed was when we were talking about special effects. So we all know about that moment that was set in the time of the first film when Eddie Murphy met Leslie Jones.
Exactly.
So that moment when he was with her, and of course we know that wasn't filmed back then, so they had to use special effects to put him in there. Now, so that the special effect of a young Eddie Murphy, it was fine when he was sitting still, but when he moved and started talking,
the eyes got to rolling all over the place.
Yeah, when that happened, that reminded me of the Will Smith movie where he meets his own clone.
Right.
It looked like that. When it's a still shot, it's cool.
It's perfect. Yeah.
But when they start moving and that lips move and it's like, oh, you doing like the Pole Express over here.
Right.
So that
it looked like something out of like Final Fantasy or something. Yeah, out of a video game.
It kind of stuck out, and I guess maybe what helped was that the scene wasn't as bright, wasn't as well lit, so that kind of hit some of it. But I noticed because I was like, oh, how they gonna work this out with Leslie Jones and them obviously having not filmed anybody back then. They're putting it in, so I noticed it. I think it was a little better than what was in that Will Smith movie, but I still was like, that's a special effect.
It pulled you back, and Arsenio was kind of wonky too. And I think it was because they had to use their real faces and all, and then put the others, but their faces are more full than they used to be.
Yeah.
So it was trying to catch over here and everything. Yeah. That lion. That lion, Simba or Mufasa or whoever was not doing good that day. That lion was jaggedy, man, raggedy and jaggedy and everything else. But what I did like, and then to stick back to the cons, I liked Babar when they brought the elephant back, because when you met him in the first one, he was really small, and he just came up and went by Akeem, and then he said hello, Babar, and he rolled out. Well, this time he's like regal and coming up and everything, and although he wasn't really there, he was made on a computer. It was a bit more believable compared to what we've said already. Sometimes they lost their accents. And James Earl Jones, if you remember, even in the first one, never really had an African accent. It was more he just spoke and that bass and that tone that he always does. And it sounds regal because he sounds like he's a person of power. And in this one, he did the same thing. He didn't have the cadence and all as if he came from, I guess, Zamunda. Eddie Murphy kept it through the first one. And I think because he had dialect coaches and things like that to make sure anytime he stepped a bit offline, we're going to shoot that again. Right. But with this one, there were times that Eddie began to talk just, I guess, like James Earl Jones was, which is like the king, or I've been in this power for so long, let me speak with my chest and it'll sound like I'm important, but not sound African. Right. So everyone around him was knocking it out of the park, and Wesley has done stuff like that back in like college. Taking African studies and all of that. So whether it was dancing, whether it was whatever else, he's gonna blow that out the water. Yeah. And there was times that Wes would say something that he just would accentuate the vowel or whatever, just to show you, hey, I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it kind of it was shown with some more than others, which it's a comedy. So at the end of the day, we're not it's just a little nitpick, but it was prevalent through the runtime. So,
Yeah, I agree. I was going to bring up Wesley Snipes, maintaining his accent all the way throughout. That made it a little more believable.
yes.
But I think Eddie Murphy, and Arsenio Hall, their accent was like in and out. It's like, all right, guys. And when it wasn't in the first movie, so I mean, yes, it was decades ago. Okay, but that is a bit of a letdown when there was a dedication to it. That minor bit of realism that you want me to accept this is a sequel, that this is a continuation of what happened, all of what happened in the last movie. And when that falls away, that's a bit of a letdown. And I guess and something that I think was improved was like the costuming, because in the sequel, there was, I felt the costuming was a little more serious, especially for the heads of state. In the first movie.
Oh, certainly.
In the first movie, what Arsenio and Eddie Murphy had on was not very serious to me. What they were wearing didn't look very serious.
With the big lion, with
Exactly. But there was less of that in the sequel. I felt what they had on, as you have been saying, looked more regal all the way throughout.
Yes.
So I appreciated that, because I mean, I think films like Black Panther have put, Native Blacks looking serious on the map.
Right.
And and I think there is really no film that's going to start putting Black folk in their element and then have them looking like clowns. I don't think that's going to work anymore.
Right.
Unless that's what the movie is about. And even in this, this is a comedy, but in the first movie, some of that stuff was a little clownish, and it looked African now. And what do I know about Africans? What do I know about Africans? But they're just the things they had on looked a little more serious all around the board, and I appreciated that.
There were a couple of outfits that Prince Lavelle had on that I was like, yo, I need that in my closet, yo. Man, that black almost looked like a dashiki, and it had the gold all down the chest and the whole nine.
Yeah.
I was like, man, yo, Ruth E. Carter deserves that star on the Walk of Fame that she just got recently. She deserves that Oscar for Black Panther, and she is becoming the one to go to for things like this. I'm sure that the women going crazy over the gowns and all that the women were wearing. And from top to bottom, it was just, everything was just on point with that. That keeps you coming back because of the colors and because of the fabrics and because of just the way that everyone looked, even when they were dancing.
Yes.
And the dancers coming out and putting on their show and everything.
Yeah.
It was a lot of this movie that wasn't just comedy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that was really, I mean, I soaked it up. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
This is a very entertaining property. It carried the torch very good. The lessons that were learned gave some weight. The women and their roles exceeded even the first one. And I'm wondering if there is another sequel, or to make it a trilogy, how they will go above that. Everyone I felt was on their A game, and I appreciated seeing the comedians, which didn't even really have speaking roles, but I'm sure they were happy just to be in the film. So I am going to be purchasing this when it comes out. Like I said, I've seen it twice already, and every time I see it, there's something new that pops up, or something small over here, or it's just those little nuggets that you kind of catch and say, oh, I didn't even see that time, or I didn't even appreciate that over there. The directing was good. The directing was fair, and the script was pretty basic, which I thought allowed the comedians their time to shine. I think that it had the bare dressings just enough so that you could take what was on the paper and kind of breathe a little more color into it. acting is where I felt this gets a couple of notches above, because it carried the first film. Um, and while Eddie and Arsenio were more reserved as Akeem and Simi, it gave them a chance to expound on the barbers and to bring you the witch doctor Rafiki, and to bring you Reverend Brown, and to bring you sexual chocolate, and everything else that was going on. And the fifth element, I think, is a I guess a combination of nostalgia, and, as I said before, it feeling like it's one of our properties. Like, this feels like it's our family. Like, we've grown up with these people since Akeem was barely 21 or whatever age that he was, all the way up until now, where he's like growing into his power and into his responsibility, and realizing that some laws can be changed, that some laws can be bent, and some laws don't belong there at all. And so it's just when to say when on some things, and how to um, kind of harken back to the things that his father instilled in him, as well as the things that McDowell instilled into him also as being his father-in-law. So all in all, I would give this, I say, a high we saw that. If we had to go to the numbers, I would give it about a good 7, which in my case is very good. And I'm definitely going to be spinning this thing in the Blu-ray player as soon as it hits.
So I think my enjoyment of the film kind of depended on having seen the first film. You don't have to see the first one to watch the second one, but there were so many references. Right. There were so many references,
that
and I appreciated most of them. So there was that. It's kind of like, for me, the two movies are kind of like they work together, and they work together pretty well. So I didn't have a problem with the acting, except for the whole inconsistencies with the accents from like some of the main characters. That's the only thing that bugged me about that, or the script. Yeah. The plot, I felt that with all the references to the first film, they did fit in a plot. They did fit in, something to actually say about, what is the role of women even in this African nation in the 21st century. So that was nice to see that acknowledged. So I appreciate about the plot. Like I said, the rewatchability, to me, it's tied in with the first film. So if I were to watch them again, I'd probably watch the first one again and then watch the second one.
Yeah, sure.
The fifth element for me to talk about would be I really love the costuming, especially because of what I had said, that it feels like, this African nation is being taken seriously, which I did not feel that in the first film. But I did feel it in this one. So that was a nice update. Because, propagating the idea that, what these people have on, I mean, it's right. It's not funny.
Right.
Because it's not what I would have on. It's okay. Yeah. So I think that is important as we continue to have, this telling our stories. I think that our dignity is also being put out front. And I think that is important. Even in this comedy, we could take people who look like us seriously, and I think that has helped in this movie.
Right.
So like you, I would rate it as we saw that. I mean, I did enjoy it. I think a lot of my enjoyment depended on the first film a lot, which is why which would keep me from rating it higher. But I wouldn't mind seeing it again. But that would be my rating.
That's on point, ladies and gentlemen. How did you all feel about Coming to America? Did you use that E word, that expectations? How were your expectations, and were they met? How did you feel about the individual characters and the returns, as well as some of the new ones? And everything as a whole, was it entertaining to you, or did you feel that it was just so? Leave us a comment, let us know, and keep us locked in, because we got a lot more good things coming for you next time. That wedding celebration at the end was so funny, because when it's time, when you get 6 or 7 black folks together, it means we got to come bopping.
It's time for that electric slide.
Right.
I was like, because I saw him, I was like, wait a minute, I know that. I know that move.
Once they start going to the back, it's like,
yeah, I'm like,
oh,
wait a
Lord.
minute. I know that move because I
They bought it out.
I just saw it in the last
Right.
the last wedding I was in before
Yeah.
mine. I was like, wait a minute, there we are. That's the legend that will never die.
It's like soon our babies will start coming out of the womb, like to the left.
They got that part of Black culture right. So okay, yes. Thank you for getting that right.
Okay. And they bought the twins that were rapping in the first one.
Yeah.
And they said like 2 lines and they were gone. Like, wait a minute, what?
That was another. You remember this? But it was funny though, and it was only like 15 seconds. So I'm like, all right, okay, do it.
Yeah, right. And it was a time that they had the Reverend up there with Randy Watson from Sexual Chocolate.
Yeah.
And while Randy is singing, the Reverend is like preaching. He's like, oh yeah, because you gotta tie that hand, The way that the Reverend's hair was going over like this, and it was like white cotton candy.
Yeah.
And he had jaws now because he was older.
Yeah.
Man, that is something that every time I see it, I know I'm gonna be wilding out. Like, it's just something about it.
We've been to that church.
Right.
I think all of us have been to that church. So fine. you got that part right. Okay.
Right.
I mentioned Gladys Knight.
Right.
Yeah, they brought in Mutombo because I'm thinking because it's a comedy. He just called somebody Mutombo to be funny. Yeah. And then while he was, and that was a really short scene, but while he said, I'm thinking like, what if that's really Dikembe? And it was. I'm like, oh yes, it's really Dikembe. Do it.
I'm like,
yeah, he stood up, and I'm like, yes, do it. Thank you. That was great. That was a great moment.
You had Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
You had Rick Ross, and it's the palace. It's actually Rick Ross's house, one of his homes, something like that. Yeah, Salt and Pepper.
Yeah, he did.
They had
didn't have In Vogue. Yeah, they had In Vogue. Like, okay.
Yeah.
They did it.
Because how wild is it that you have a funeral that the person who's passing on is like, I'm gonna be there and laugh and joke and everything with and the way that they gave him the send off was really good. But it was almost like a mini concert,
Yeah, it was. I mean, he's a king, so he's king. So yes, right. a king I could definitely see a king arrange for a concert at their funeral. I can see that. I can see that. So do it.
Oh, Tracy Morgan. It's like anything that he says is already funny. And he says something when first time that you met Lavelle and him. Lavelle was going for like an interview to try to get a job. And Tracy Morgan said something to the effect of, oh man, you a shoo-in. We sitting here with all these Romney looking sniggles,
Right.
Yeah, man. How about you guy who's a comedian from South Africa? Had a little afro like a microphone.
Yeah.
Trevor Noah. I thought he was great. I thought he did great. Another cameo,
Who's not right? Who's not? See, that's what I thought of Black Panther. I'm like, who's not in this movie? Yeah. And they did it in. It's like, okay, fine. Because I mean, I'm not gonna be the one complaining about. I'm not gonna be the one complaining about ain't enough Black people in this movie. And then when they put them all in there, it's like, okay, I'm not gonna complain there. Plenty of folk, which was good to see them. It's good. It's nice to know folk still getting work, even if they don't know on screen for like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
I'm okay. If they're okay with it, then I'm okay with it.